Hi, my name is Zoe Ray, and I'll be discussing the ethical question of should sex education be required in all schools? I believe that it should. Talking about sex in school is taboo. It's essentially discussing intimate details with peers, adults, and acquaintances. Plus, it can be embarrassing for anyone involved. Does this mean that we should brush it under the rug because it's easier? No. Sex is an inevitable part of our existence as humans, and by the age of 19, 70% of teens have had sex already. This is a big number, and it's not one that's going to change overnight. Sex is natural, but it's also dangerous. There are possibilities of contracting STDs, unwanted pregnancies, and other things that teens don't think about when they aren't educated about safe sex. Let me ask everyone for a raise of hands. Who here has had a conversation about how to have safe sex with their parents in the past year? Probably not a lot of you. If parents aren't typically having constructive conversations about safe sex with their teens, then that leaves it up to the schools. And if schools aren't going to teach teens about how to have safe sex correctly, who will? This brings me to my point. Our education system needs to incorporate sex education for the welfare of teens having sex or those eventually expecting to have sex at some point in their life. But first, here's a miniature contraceptive lesson of the two methods that I'll be talking about, though there are dozens of other methods that are available. Condoms are used to prevent pregnancies and STDs and are usually 98% effective. They're the ones that look like this. And contraceptive pills are used for birth control and are 99% effective, and they're the ones that look like this. These are usually the most used by teens having safe sex. And by the way, both of them can be found at your local Planned Parenthood, supermarket, or healthcare provider for free or very cheap, depending on the distributor. Among teens from 18 to 19, 41% report that they know little or nothing about condoms, and 75% say that they know little or nothing about the contraceptive pill or birth control. This means that there are more teens having sex than there are teens that know about how to have safe sex. Of the 70% of teens that are having sex, only about a third of them know how to use birth control, and less than half know how to use condoms. Though this percentage is shocking, it's a relatively liberal number considering the regulations that America has on sex education. Out of the 50 states, only 22 states require sex education of some form, and out of those 22, only 13 require the information to be medically accurate. Being sexually active is something that should not be frowned upon. But with all the repercussions that can come from having unprotected sex, it's imperative that America changes its perspective on how to teach sex authentically and accurately. So, what does a healthy sex education program look like? Experts have identified several attributes to effective and safe sex education programs, such as programs that offer culturally appropriate sexual health information for students, programs that offer a safe space for those involved, programs that assist people in their refusal skills of sexual intercourse, or their right to decline sex and how to prevent sexual assault, programs that provide medically accurate information, programs that focus on providing healthy behavior for sex, including how to prevent STDs and pregnancy with contraceptive methods, and programs that rely on participatory teaching methods. These all sound like simple and reasonable expectations to set for sex education, but this model for sex ed has been incredibly controversial and is not often taught. So, the biggest reason why this type of sex ed is being combated in the public education system is the concept of abstinence, which is the belief that people should wait to have sex until they are married for religious or personal reasons. Many people claim that sex education defeats the purpose of abstinence and encourages people to remain abstinent. There's absolutely nothing wrong with staying abstinent if it's your own personal choice. It's your body, and you should wait until marriage if you want to wait until marriage. The problem with abstinence-only sex education is that it's the only form of sex education that some kids receive. Abstinence-only education is often faulty because when it's taught as the only kind of sex education. This creates a stigma for kids that may not want to stay abstinent, that they're doing something wrong and dirty because they're making a choice different from that of their classmates. Being abstinent can be compared to being a vegetarian. If you want to be a vegetarian, good for you. People should respect your choice. But if you don't want to be a vegetarian, you shouldn't be lectured for hours about how you're a terrible person for eating a hamburger. Because abstinence is a choice based on religious or personal beliefs, it doesn't apply to everyone being taught. Not everyone is going to want to be vegetarian the same way that not everyone is going to remain abstinent. It's unreasonable to ask an entire class or school or age group not to have sex. Statistically, it's not realistic. And many states have evaluated the effects of abstinence-only education on teens, and several have found that this form of education, 1, does not delay the initiation of sexual activity, 2, does not reduce teen pregnancy, and 3 actually showed negative impacts on teens' willingness to use contraceptive methods. And because abstinence-only education is the only thing taught at certain schools, teens that do decide to reject abstinence don't receive any other kind of education, and thus they don't know how to have sex safely. Again, when liken it to being a vegetarian, if kids are only taught not to eat meat for their entire lives and then they actually do eat meat, how will they know if it's safe to eat? If the meat is raw, they may still eat it because to them it's just meat, and then they may get salmonella because they were never taught how to eat meat safely. So, though being abstinent is a choice that a lot of people make, it shouldn't be the only form of sex education taught because not everyone is going to want to stay abstinent. So my second form of opposition is that some people think that by giving sex education, it will promote sexual activity and therefore it will increase the number of pregnancies and contracted STDs, or basically promote sexual risk. However, evaluations of comprehensive sex education show that they do not increase rates of sexual activity/initiation, do not lower the age at which teens initiate sex, and do not increase the frequency of teens, meaning that it really doesn't change depending on the methods. As well as this, by giving sexually active teens the information they need about contraceptives, they are able to make smart and safe decisions about sex when or if they do decide to have sex. And my third form of opposition is that some people have claimed that the contraceptive methods that are being taught in sex education programs are unnecessary or ineffective, but studies have shown that this isn't true. When condoms are used correctly and consistently, they greatly lessen the average risk for women of becoming pregnant by less than 3%, and can help prevent the spread of HPV and other STDs. As well as contraceptive pills or birth control lessen the chance of pregnancy greatly. A normal woman has an 85% chance of being pregnant with no method of contraceptive, but a woman using birth control has a 1% chance of being pregnant. So the Catholic perspective on sex education. The Catholic Church is a huge supporter of abstinence-only sex education program, which differs greatly from the kind of sex education that I believe should exist, as I explained earlier in all schools. Because the Church is against the use of contraceptives, the type of sex education that includes preventative programs is unlikely to be consented by the Catholic Church as a required standard for public education. And this is a quote from Pope John Paul II about celibacy, which is basically the same thing as abstinence, which I will read. The vow of celibacy is a matter of keeping one's word to Christ and the Church, a duty and a proof of the priest's inner maturity and is the expression of his interpersonal dignity. Which is basically saying that it's your own personal devotion to the Church if you stay abstinent. Though America's sex education program could seek a lot of improvement, it's gotten better over the years. The United States has one of the highest teen pregnancy rates of the developed world, but this rate is steadily decreasing because of the drastic improvements of the use of contraceptives. If we encourage public education systems to incorporate objective sex education courses, we can spread awareness and give teens the information that they need to have sex safely and responsibly. Thank you for listening!